Peace and blessings. This is Gabrielle with Overly Defined, and I am streaming from both my YouTube channel and my Facebook channel. This is Gabrielle again uh, with Overly Defined, and I am making this video and hopefully as many more videos as I can tonight. um, for those of you who have been waiting for more videos and um, these videos upon request. And so this one is Stillbirth. And I believe I put the title on here. I can't see it. So if I'm looking at this camera, it's because if you see my eyes going this way, I am talking to Facebook. If you see my eyes go this way, I am talking to YouTube. Okay, and so I'm making this video, unfortunately, because this is something that is a part of life. And if not you, or if not me, someone else will experience this just because it's a part of the fallen nature of man. Death has entered into this realm, and it's something that we have to deal with. Something that we all will eventually experience until our Messiah, the Creator, comes in. So I wanted to do this video to give you some statistics and some tips on how to lower your risk for having a stillbirth. I actually know a few sisters who have actually went through having a stillbirth. A stillbirth. I actually have a sister in my family who has experienced this multiple times, and we actually had to endure hearing about the multiple births that ended up in a stillbirth. But luckily, honor to the Most High, we have beautiful nieces and nephews who made it past that mark. So it has been something near and dear to our heart and to our home. And I wanted to make this video because I haven't spoken anything about this. And I think that this is the perfect time to talk about it. And I hope that what I say is encouraging to you guys, and that it's not grieving to you. And I hope that it will build you up in faith and build you up in strength and build you up mentally to prepare your body, mind, and spirit. Okay, so I'm going to touch on the physical, and then I'm going to touch on spiritual for those of you who are spiritually enlightened, spiritually awakened, and you believe in the Savior. I'm going to be giving wisdom from this. This is what you would call the Bible, okay? But this has just been put back into the original Hebraic terms. So this is my master's, my husband, the love of my life. This is his. Mine is actually packed up. We're in the middle of moving. And so you may see boxes and stuff behind me because we're moving right now. So I'm just going to use his book when I get into talking about the spiritual aspects of lowering your risk for stillbirth. Please feel free to share this video with any and everybody that you know who is going to be delivering a baby or assisting with delivering a baby, or who's had these who's had stillbirth happen to them before. So please feel free to share this, because I know a lot of times with a stillbirth, we go to the hospital and we're looking for explanations, we're looking for reasonings from the experts themselves, the doctors, the nurses, the establishment in general. And most of the time we walk out with, I don't know what has happened. It just happened. And so hopefully this gives light to some of the unanswered questions that may have come with experiencing this. I just have notes jotted down everywhere on this, and hopefully I can come up with a sheet with all of my references for you guys to be able to go back and reference yourself. But some of the causes for stillbirth are due to pregnancy and labor complications. And such complications are placental abruption. That is where your placenta actually detaches from the wall, the uterine wall. That can cause a stillbirth. And placenta issues. Some women have very, very large placentas. Some have very, very small placentas. Some placentas don't develop fully. They don't develop properly. Some placentas are attached in the wrong spots. They may be attached too close to the cervix. Some placentas are partially attached. So any type of placental abruption can cause a high risk in going into a stillbirth. Preterm labor can cause stillbirth. Bleeding right before labor could cause a stillbirth. The bleeding could come from you being hemorrhaging. A way that you can hemorrhage is lifting items you shouldn't be lifting. That's too heavy. Blunt force to the womb. There's so many different things can cause hemorrhaging or placental abruption. Same thing, you can get hit, a forceful blow to the womb can cause the placenta to partially detach. So these are all the ways that a stillbirth can possibly happen. Shalom, Janelle, bless you. Birth defects. That's not talked about a lot, but sometimes there are birth defects that happen within the fetus or the baby that will cause a stillbirth to happen later on down the line. And stillbirth and I believe miscarriage are kind of the same. They're kind of the same thing. It's just a miscarriage normally happens early on before you reach the 24-week mark. And then after 24 weeks, it's kind of labeled or termed a stillbirth. But it's the same thing. It's the death of the baby. Like I said, my sister, she had, I want to say we had three stillbirths. And they would happen at the same time. It would always be her 9th month of pregnancy. And so what ended up happening with her is the next birth that she had, they decided to take the baby in the 8th month. So the rest of the children that she's had them delivered at the 8th month, because it would come up to the 9th month and the baby would just no longer live once she hit the 9th month. So it can be something genetically going on within the baby himself. So that causes stillbirth, genetic mutations, infections will cause stillbirths as well, whether the infection is in the mother, if the infection is in the baby, or if the infection is in the placenta. You can get infections in the placenta. Okay. Um, the umbilical cord, if the umbilical cord is in a knot, if it's knotted, if it's twisted itself around itself and it causes a knot, or it's squeezed, that can also cause a stillbirth. Um, Also, complications with my first son. He only had 2 vessels in the cord, and they made a very big deal about that because it could interfere with the waste being properly removed from his system, and also him getting the nutrients to him. He only had 1 vessel for nutrients and 1 vessel for waste removal. And so anything could have went on where it didn't work out like it's supposed to, and it could have led to a stillbirth as well. So umbilical cord complications can lead to stillbirth as well. Things dealing with the mother's health, preeclampsia or high blood pressure, pre-diabetes, poor prenatal care, poor diet. If you are a mom who is obese, that can be also a risk for having a stillbirth. Not exercising. Exercising is very vital. It's very important during pregnancy because it will help you keep away diabetes. It will help you keep your blood pressure level and normal. So a lot of the complications as far as health-wise that I just mentioned can be regulated just with making sure that you're exercising. Also, undue stress, emotional trauma, traumatic stress, conflict between mom and dad, or mother and father of the baby, marital conflict, family conflict, and financial stress can also be a factor in whether or not your risk increases for stillbirth. But one of the main things is your health. Your health plays a major role in whether or not the baby will be able to enter into this world without any complications. I want to urge and encourage and admonish the moms to make sure that your health is intact. You need to have some type of prenatal care. And when I say prenatal care, that means if you choose to go to the hospital to get checkups by a doctor, that's considered prenatal care. Having a midwife is considered prenatal care, or making sure that you are getting everything that you need as a mom and for baby would be considered prenatal care. Just eating what you want and just living and going through the pregnancy without monitoring yourself is not prenatal care. It's not making sure that you have everything that you need physically to sustain both you and baby. You want to make sure that you're monitoring. I don't go to, sometimes I'll go to the doctor to just get, maybe get blood work done just to see where I am on that. But as far as having doctor's appointments, I don't do that. And I normally don't have to do that because I monitor myself. I know my body. I eat a certain way and I make sure that I exercise. So that way I am getting the proper prenatal care that I need during pregnancy. So it's the same likeness. If you're going to see a holistic doctor, if you're going to see a midwife, if you're going to see, you're going to go see an OBGYN, you want to make sure that you're doing the proper things where your health is intact. Because your health being intact is what's going to help keep your risk for having any complications during pregnancy or birth down. Your food intake, your water intake, your sleep, and your exercise is very, 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 very important in making sure that your health is going to be where it needs to be, so that you're protected and that the baby is protected. All of these play a part in whether or not you have increased risk with stillbirth. For Black women, Black mothers, you're 2 times more likely to have a stillbirth than any other woman on the face of this earth, okay? And it's because of the racial disparities that we face in healthcare and in education. Our women are not very educated on our bodies. We're not very educated on having babies, or even being able to rear and nurture and feed them. And so it increases your rate it increases our rate all the way up. Also because of a financial standpoint, where we are placed household income wise, school wise. I mean, you have a harder time getting access to proper health care. And so our risks go up because of the curses that have been placed on us because of disobedience. Our risks go up. And so you want to make sure that you are taking the proper steps that's needed to make sure that you don't have to be placed in this category. Okay. Give me just a moment, and I'm going to come back with the spiritual aspect of the stillbirth. Hold on just a moment, guys. right, big guy. All right, come on. Let's sit with mommy. Okay. Okay, I'm back. Hold on, I had to grab big guy. Big guy. Bing. Yeah, right. Okay. Okay, hallelujah. So those are just some physical aspects. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to come from a spiritual standpoint, spiritual angle. Go ahead, Jazz. You're not on camera, Jazz. Okay. So from the spiritual standpoint, how you want to prepare yourself and lower your risk is to make sure that you're preparing your mind and your spirit for labor and delivery, even for pregnancy itself. Sometimes women find out they're pregnant and they're flooded with emotions, like every single emotion that you can think of. And what tends to happen is if it's the mother's first time being pregnant, she's overwhelmed with the spirit of anxiety. She's overwhelmed with the spirit of fear, overwhelmed with the spirit of frustration, just because it's new and you don't know what to expect. And so what you want to do is you want to make sure that you are getting your mind and your spirit together. Actually thinking about what generational curses could you possibly be dealing with on your family line that would interfere in the proper development of your child. That would also interfere with the proper delivery of your child. These are things that you want to think about when you are pregnant. This is what you want to think about, not just right before labor, but the instant you find out that you are about to bring new life into the world. This is where it starts, because our mental capacity will definitely play a major part in the development of your child, your mental and spiritual. And if you're always mentally down, if you're always mentally speaking death to yourself, speaking or receiving death from anyone else speaking to you, this is what your baby is being formed with. It's being formed with death. It's being formed with doubts. It's being formed with imperfections, inconsistencies. It's being formed with flaws. It's being formed with unbelief. It's being formed with all of these spirits that you're battling with. And the baby can also feel these things. So if you are feeling this, if you are carrying this around, the baby is carrying and feeling these things as well. And that can have a dramatic impact on whether or not the baby decides to continue in life, or if the baby decides to just, give up and not continue anymore. So you want to make sure that your mind and your spirit is together. When it deals with stillbirth is death. And so when I think about death, I think about what in the scriptures causes death to come on us. And I know for those of us who believe in the scriptures or the Bible, we know that there are certain things that we can do to invite the spirit of death. Okay, there's certain things that our ancestors have done and can do to invite the spirit of death. For those of us who've actually suffered from stillbirth, and there's just no explanation whatsoever from the physical standpoint, whether our health was in good order, the baby's health was in good order. There's just no explanation because of that. What could be behind it could be spiritual. What in your family line, or what is it that we have done that will cause the spirit of death to be invited into our space, be invited into our home? And so that's what we want to look at from this standpoint, because Okay, maybe you didn't do anything personally to invite the spirit of death, but maybe it was on your ancestors. Maybe it's on your bloodline. What are the things that has been written that you would cause a spirit of death? So we know for one thing that's very simple is the adultery. For those who commit adultery, we already know that the penalty is death. Okay. For those who, so you want to look at it from that standpoint. Okay. Is there a spirit of death on my bloodline because I had adulterous ancestors? I had idolatrous ancestors. Is this why I cannot carry baby full term? Because this curse is on me. So from the spiritual standpoint, you want to look at it from that background. And also there are certain things. Let me see. Let me go to the scripture. Let me make sure. I believe it's Deuteronomy 27. Let me see. Okay, there's Deuteronomy. I believe 27. I believe 27 is a chapter where it talks about all of these curses. But you want to think about what all this is the death penalty, the spirit of death tied to. And during your pregnancy, when you find out what it is tied to, you want to go after all of those ties. I cancel, I nullify, I make void, I render futile and useless the work of the spirit of death on my life, on my bloodline, on my child, on my generation. You want to go through it and you want to break the bonds and break the ties that the spirit of death and premature death may have on you, so that it does not come onto your child, but that it passes over and it no longer continues to go through the generations. Let me see. Okay, yeah, it's Deuteronomy 27. Let me see. This goes through curses. And you shall write all words of this Torah on the stones plainly and well. So if you read through these curses, there's certain things that if you do, this is the type of curse that comes on you. So this is what you want to make sure that you're going through from the spiritual standpoint when you do conceive. So that way, from the spiritual standpoint, you have already cut off all access that the spirit of death or premature death will have to you or to your seed. And so I wanted to share that with you guys. That's the spiritual standpoint. I'm going to look more into it spiritually to see what else and what other method you can attack from to lower your risk of stillbirth. But make sure, even with the spiritual, that you're doing everything that you possibly can on the physical standpoint to make sure that you haven't placed yourself in harm's way or your baby in harm's way. If you guys have any questions, any more concerns regarding the stillbirth, I believe I covered everything on here. I think I said with the infections, STIs can cause stillbirth as well, and bacterial infections can cause stillbirths. I believe I said obesity is a cause, and if your BMI is over 30, above 30, that can cause stillbirth as well. So if you guys have any more questions regarding that, or if this information that I've given will be beneficial to anyone else that you may know, please feel free to share this information with them. And I'm going to end this and start the next video. Bless y'all. Shalom. And